and I have one familiar face with me today, and that's our undercover intel agent, S2. Good to see you, S2.
Yeah, good to see you, Chris.
Well, actually, yeah, it's okay. You can see me, but I can't see you. Nobody can see you. I just got a text from Mike Sterling. He's on a gas stop. He's been in North Carolina doing hazmat training for people who are helping with the relief work there. So as soon as he's fueled up, he's going to be joining us as well. Tonight's topic is really up his alley, and that's the top 10 preps that everybody needs to do right now because of the craziness that's headed our way with this election cycle. And actually, what happened, I didn't tell you this, S2. So I was in a meeting with a gold company that's a really interesting gold company. They're our kind of people. They're preppers. They're into survival stuff. And they said, could you do a webinar with us on the top 3 to 5 survival strategies for this crazy election cycle? So as per usual, I came up with way more than that. And that's my process, right? You come up with a bunch of them and you keep trimming it down so it's just the best. But I came up with about 15 of them. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to take these 10 and we're going to throw it in here for an episode of Survival Dispatch News and cover it this way and see what people's feedback is. And then when I do this webinar for Advantage Gold, we'll have some intel. We'll have some survey type information from tonight. So that's why that's why we're doing these topics tonight. So since Mike is not here yet, I will cover the conflicted question. Please don't let me forget to do it at the end as well. For those of you who are new, speak of the devil. How you doing, Mike?
It's the Mikester.
My peoples.
Were your ears
How's everybody
burning?
doing?
You're looking mighty chipper.
S2 was just talking a bunch of shit about you, but you know, I told him not to stop doing that.
You know, yeah, not like I care. He's a Marine. What does he know?
So
Purple.
Your timing is immaculate. We were just fixing to do the conflicted question.
Hi everybody.
I got it covered. Just make sure I remember to do it at the end. I was laying that on S2, but clearly it's your department. So for those people who haven't seen us do the conflicted question before, there's this game called Conflict of the Game. I think there's maybe 13 or 14 of these decks now that are post-apocalyptic scenarios. When the couple that owns this game started doing these questions, the idea was to put some thought towards apocalyptic situations and what you would do. And then it evolved and it kind of turned into a morality test because a lot of the questions that are in these decks kind of bring people's morality into question. I'll tell you that they took their kids out of school in Utah because they didn't like them being taught, you know, X amount of 378 gazillion genders bullshit. So they bought this ranch in northern Idaho, 300 and some odd acres. And as the neighbors were introducing themselves, of course, they asked, so what do you all do? And they said, well, we made some money in commercial real estate, and now we've got this game called Conflict. Would you like to play? And one of the first times that they met with one of their neighbors, and this is in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like it's densely populated. Anyway, this person comes over and they ask him a question out of one of the decks. And the guy said, oh, we don't prep. We don't stack stuff up at all. If the shit hits the fan, we're just going to take whatever we want at gunpoint. And the people on this game were like, all righty then. This will be the last time you ever come to our house. And that's why we say it's related to morals. So here we go.
Get those moral reps in.
Yeah, we're back to Gordon, by the way.
I like Gordon.
Well, I felt that
everybody
this question,
dies when Gordon's on.
Yeah, I thought that this question actually was really relevant to the topic at hand that we're discussing tonight. So Gordon feels that people take their freedom for granted. Do you also feel in general that people take their freedom for granted, and why? So with DOD Directive 5240.01 being very quietly updated September 27th and the news breaking this week, and we covered it on Thursday, essentially stating that any law enforcement agency in the country can ask for assistance from the military, who in turn is then authorized to use deadly force against American citizens on American ground. Posse comitatus doesn't matter, which posse comitatus, of course, was meant to prevent that scenario from unfolding. So pretty shady stuff going on there. Anyway, at the end of this episode, Mike S2 and I will answer the conflicted question, and we'd like to hear your answers in the comment section below. And Mike, I think I'm just going to put you on Mike or on Mike. I was going to put you on. We're getting a lot of feedback from your num-nums there.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm eating chicharrones. I shouldn't. Oh, my bad. There's the last one.
I was just about to say
what we were doing.
I was just about to say you're making me nauseous. Turn off your mic.
Well, then in that case,
I wouldn't say it was that bad, but anyway, tonight's episode is brought to you by Black Forest Supplements and Gold Co. The Cliff Notes version on this is that S2 and I have been taking this for 6-7 months, this NMN supplement. Both of us have seen significant increase in energy. S2's seen a significant decrease in brain fog. And they also advertise this as an anti-aging product. I can't speak to that. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. But what I can tell you is that the FDA is going after these guys on behalf of Big Pharma, and they want to convert this to a prescription product so Big Pharma can hog all the profits and knock companies like Black Forest out. That should tell you everything you need to know as far as the efficacy is concerned. So there's a link down below. If you click on it, you buy 2, you get 1 free. And I would recommend that if you respond to this stuff like S2 and I would stock some of this up before the FDA gets their way and basically cock blocks the supplement companies. Not very nice. Also, Gold Co. is sponsoring this episode. There's a link down below. They've got a wealth kit. Actually, really good timing considering all the shenanigans that are going on with this election cycle already. We're already hearing reports that machines in a couple different states, including Georgia, are flipping people's vote. It's like deja vu from 2020 all over again. Let's hope that we get that fixed.
It's like deja vu all over again.
Yeah.
It's like deja vu all over again.
There's an echo in here.
Or even more, it's like deja vu all over again.
Exactly. So I think this election will end up too big to rig, meaning that they will have to have over 100% voter turnout to cheat enough to overcome Donald Trump's votes. But out of straight up caution, we all need to make sure that we vote and take somebody to the polls with you who doesn't normally vote. And let's definitely make it too big to rig. Housekeeping items. We will be live tomorrow night, the next night, and the next night at 7 p.m. Eastern. Topics to be determined depending on what's at the top of the crazy news cycle tomorrow. Also, if you go to patreon.com/survival dispatch, $9.99 a month to become a paid member, or you can do a free membership. At least 50% of the content is accessible to free members. So if you don't want to pay the $9.99 a month, it's okay. You'll still get some content there. We did light something up new last night for our paying members. We have a private group on Signal the app, so encrypted. And if things go to hell, that'll be a spot where everybody can kind of regroup and get intel on what's going down. Also over on Patreon, you get access to behind the scenes content. You get early access to content. You get to participate in the online chats over there. You get our 228-page essentials guide included, which is a $10 value in itself, and you get 50% off the rest of our Survival Dispatch Insider magazines. So with that being said, let me paint the picture for this evening, and we'll get rolling.
I'm kind of upset that you didn't use my name that I wanted you to use for it and call it the Champagne Room.
Well, I must have missed that memo, to be honest with you.
Can I
S2?
Chris, let me say something here real quick. I wanted to no, Josh, underground.
You cut out there for a second, S2. Do you want to come again?
I said, no, Josh, I am not S2 underground.
Oh, sorry. Okay, gotcha. All right, so let's get started here. We'll paint the background for this. So essentially, the powers that be, the NWO, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to hand over power to Donald Trump without pulling out all the stops. So what does that mean? Well, they will continue to try and assassinate him. And if they're unable to assassinate him, they're going to incarcerate him. And once that happens, they're going to say that the 14th Amendment is coming into play and he's disqualified from being the president. If they don't incarcerate him and we still continue on and he's won the election with the most votes, what the next thing is they will not certify the election results on January the 6th. And Jamie Raskin has already said that, piece of crap Democrat, who thinks it's funny that all the people who vote for Trump will have to face off against our military, hence the reason we just covered the DOD Directive 5240.01. So if they do that and they don't certify the election on January 6th after a landslide win on Trump's part, that will spark a civil war. We are not advocating that. We're not advocating violence at all. And, some of us covered our plans last week. My plan for our family is we are going to disappear to the woods where our cabin is. And anybody who is unknown to us probably shouldn't step foot on our property after that point in time. But we're going to hunker down in the mountains. So with all that being said, Mike, give me your feedback as far as laying the groundwork. Did I miss anything? And then I want to ask you the same question as to. Basically,
I think one of the
could unfold is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so I think one of the big things that they overlook in this over and over and over again is that they keep forgetting that the absolute vast majority of the military leans hard right anyway. So they keep on saying, "Oh, the military, we can get the military to fire." I was like, whoa. The only ones that go for that are the like the star officers. We're talking flag level officers here. So it's a question of, hey, I hate to break this to you, but the guys that actually, have their fingers on the triggers, yeah, they ain't gonna do that sort of thing. They're just not gonna. And I just don't think that they actually realize. Well, I mean, the vast majority of them have never been in the military, and let's face it, in order to make general rank 9 times out of 10, yeah, it's because you're a politician. Unless, of course, there's a serious war going on, in which case, they go looking for the bastards and they break the bastards out from under glass and make that work. But yeah, as far as the setup goes, yeah, I think that's a pretty solid thing. But man, yeah, it doesn't smell good. So yeah, that's me rambling. I'm tired. Get off me.
No worries. S2, did Mike and I miss anything as far as how this could potentially unfold before we get into our 10 must-do preps?
Well, they could try to assassinate Trump again.
That was the number one point that I made.
Yeah.
You must.
Number one, pay attention. I'm the one that's tired and been in the mountains.
Yeah, I'm tired. I'm tired too. I just got done doing yard work.
Fair enough. Or it cut out on you. That was my first point. They're either going to continue to try and assassinate him. If they don't assassinate him, they're going to incarcerate him. If they incarcerate him, they're going to disqualify him with the 14th Amendment. And if they don't manage to kill him, they don't manage to incarcerate him, they're not going to certify the election on January the 6th. And again, this all relates to DOD Directive 5240.01 that we discussed a couple nights ago. And Mike made some really good points on that, by the way. Thanks, Mike. Go ahead.
I had one other point to make about that too, is that it might also might try to make it appear as though Trump is the one cheating this time. If they allow a lot of the votes to lean towards Trump with the cheating that we're already seeing going on, and he starts to get more of the votes than they ever counted on, then they can turn around and introduce fake ballots. Patrick Byrne introduced something yesterday. They've had a lawsuit going in place for a while now where they've had these ballot companies out there that what they were doing is they were printing ballots at these ballot printing companies. But what they were doing, so they would get, let's say for Michigan, they would get 2 million ballots printed out for their elections. Well, what they would do is they would actually overrun that and print 3 million, and they would use those 3 million. They would send those up to Flushing, New York, and have I guess the SIEU up there that was involved in this, and they were up there actually filling out those ballots. And that was how the United States Postal Service got involved in it, because they were absentee ballots. So, there's all kinds of different ways they can do this. And I think they're probably going to try to make it look like Trump cheated again. They're going to pull out the 2016 playbook.
Interesting.
They've tried to set that stage a couple of times thus far. Yeah. Solid.
Well, Hillary is back in the picture, so that should tell you something.
Yeah. Sorry. So when I'm looking,
is it just me, or is everybody coming across like a transformer tonight?
No, everything's perfect on my end here. I was just saying, when I'm looking to my left, I have a screen here that has all the places that we're simultaneously broadcasting to, and had to deal with a peckerhead on the main Survival Dispatch YouTube channel who says that his comments deleted now, but essentially said that Donald Trump is going to hell and so are we, because we support him. So adios, Stephen. Have a good life. Try not to be a jerk your entire life. All right. So top 10 election cycle preps. So these are in no particular order. I'll read through the list that we put together. Then I'll go to Mike first and S2 second for each one of them. And hopefully that kind of helps keep the whatever delay or lag y'all are seeing on your end, which I'm not seeing here. But when I'm done, Mike, and then when Mike's done.
Is it just me, or is everybody coming through like a transformer tonight?
No.
I'm not. You're not. It's just you.
Well, you were earlier.
Everything sounds good on this end. So
okay. Well, I guess it's because I'm driving. Anyway. Okay, so number one for me.
Hold on, time out. I have a list in the brief of all 10. I'm going to read off one from the list, and then you guys will give us the feedback. Okay.
Got it.
All right.
Hey, I didn't get the notes. I mean, I probably did, but I never read them.
Yeah.
Well, I'm driving. I'm coming home.
I know. Relax. Let's get going here. All right.
Okay.
So in no particular order, the first one on the list is, because of all this craziness that has the potential to break out during this election cycle, whether it's November 5th, between November 5th and January 6th, or on January the 6th, the chances are we're most likely going to see terrorist attacks during that window. We're going to see civil unrest for sure. Let's say Trump does win in a landslide. They don't incarcerate him. They don't kill him. They transfer power. Then all the Antifa types will be rioting. If, on the other hand, if Trump wins and has the election stolen, it's not going to be pretty that way either. So, number one, stack up essential preps. By the way, this brief has been posted to our Patreon for our members over there. So all the details are available to the Survival Dispatch insiders. Pardon me. All right, stack up essential preps. That includes food, water, meds, ammo, and cash. And specific to food, and depending on whose numbers you want to believe, the annual compounded inflation rate for food has been somewhere between 20 and 30% per year since the Biden admin got installed. So even if the shit hits the fan, what else, even if it doesn't, hit the fan, what else is going to give you a 20 to 30% annual compounded return? Because you will eventually eat that food. So you can't go wrong investing in food with a long shelf life. And at the very least, you should always have at least 90 days of food stacked up. Okay, Mike. So now that topic is out there, give me your thoughts on those basic preps: food, water, meds, ammo, and cash.
Okay, so ammo prices are up. You should have had your ammo sorted out previously.
Should have.
Okay. Should have. You're probably not going to need a mountain of it, but it never hurts to have it. The only time that you have too much ammo is when it's dragging you to the bottom of the ocean.
Right.
So there's that. Food, absolutely, but I'll tell you what. And I am just coming out of the Appalachians, and was up there with Grindstone Ministries, watching everything. I'm here to tell you, food needs to be not just for you. Food needs to be for your family, and you also need to have a quantity of food. Thinking about our food preps specifically angled towards charity, towards your neighbors, because all the preppers that we've seen up there open their pantries to their neighbors and are keeping their neighbors alive. And I have never been more proud. I have never been more proud of the prepper verse, the prepper world, whatever we're going to call ourselves, right? I've never been more proud than of the things that I saw fellow preppers doing up there. Have some food for your community as well. Keep your neighbors alive. Don't do it to the detriment of yourself, of course, but keep your neighbors alive. That's what I got to say about that.
That's awesome. Appreciate that report. S2, your thoughts on those essential preps?
It's called Team Human, Mike. No, I really can't think of anything else. What I will say is that if you've already gotten yourself prepped, is that maybe it's time to start looking at some of those more extended supplies that you might need. You know, one thing that people don't think about, and I'm sure that most people in this country have an AR-15, and they don't understand that those things are prone to jamming a lot if you don't keep them clean. So I would start looking at a couple of different things. I've always been an avid reloader, so I have tons of components around, tons of gunpowder. I've always kept my primer stocks up. I have 2 or 3 machines that I can load on, and the other piece of that is your cleaning supplies for your firearms. Those are going to be essential also. Of course, you know, you can substitute some things. You could use automatic transmission fluid for general cleaner. It's not real good on the rubber parts of the gun, but that's probably one area that I could see that might get missed along the way.
Appreciate that. So on that topic, Mike, when we do the next round of testing for suppressors, which is coming up soon, we've got some more 3D printed Inconel cans coming. Griffin sent us another can for testing. We're going to do some testing with this stuff from Modern Spartan Systems. These guys, we don't have an affiliate.
Good stuff.
We have no relationship with them. They don't pay us anything. The reason I agreed to have a look at this is because this isn't a cleaner as much as it is a treatment for your gun. And they're claiming that you will get increased velocity by treating your barrel with this. So we're going to find out, because we've got a Caldwell chronograph, which is kind of a lower end one, but then we have a Doppler radar one, which is top of the line as well. So
I use that stuff, Chris.
So Mike and I
need some of that stuff.
There's 2 kits here. You're going to have one of them. That guy that we met at Prairie Fire in Nevada, this is the same type of product as his, as far as it being a treatment. You don't leave it all gobs of it on your gun, like you clean it up, but it treats the metal. But
the guy from One Seal.
That's right. Yep. Seal 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Seal 1.
And this is the same as his as well. It doesn't have a bunch of toxic chemicals in it. It's all natural. And that's cool that you've used it, S2. So I'm looking forward to trying it, especially if we can pick up a tangible difference, a measurable difference in velocity. All right. So number 2 on our list of 10 preps that you need to do now because of the craziness that's likely to unfold between now and January. Be prepared for extended grid down. We're a first world country with a third world power grid. Y'all have heard me say that over and over again. There are over 50,000 substations in our country, and 9 of them are choke points. So we have 3 grids, east half of the country, west half of the country, and Texas has its own grid. There are instances where the grids are connected because power needs to be sent somewhere that's having an emergency situation. Texas sent a bunch of power to California, not this summer, but the previous summer, because they were having brownouts. So they connected to the west grid, sent some power, then they disconnected it. So those substations, by the way, when you see the transformers with the buckets hanging off of them, they're full of mineral oil that cools the transformers. Pretty much any round will penetrate those buckets. It's 1/8 of an inch mild steel. When the mineral oil drains out, the transformers overheat, they blow up. The current wait time right now for transformers is 36 months, and we don't make them. We don't stock them up. So they have to come from Germany, Southeast Asia, and that's pretty much it as far as suppliers for those things. So because of those 9 critical choke points, it wouldn't take much, whether it was a cyber attack over the network or a kinetic attack on those substations, and you just took out power to 95% of people. The other 5% of Americans either have some contingency plans like generators and solar panels and battery backups, or they live so close to the power generation company that there's no substation between them, which means that they would most likely still be able to draw power from there. But that's a very small percentage of of Americans. So at the very least, everybody should have a battery backup unit, the ability to recharge it, whether it be with solar panels or a generator. Myself, I prefer propane generators because you can stack up propane. You don't have to cycle through it. You don't have to worry about keeping it fresh. You don't have to worry about octane ratings like pump gas. If you have a gas generator and you're stacking up gas for it, every 90 days, you need to cycle through it. So dump that into a vehicle, top your cans back up. You need to stabilize it. You need to put octane boost to it. It's a deal. So actually, there's quite a few generators, portable generators now that are dual fuel. So you can run them off of propane or gas. It's probably the best way to go if you don't have the budget to put a whole home generator in, like a Generac. So that's prep number 2. Be prepared for extended grid down. We'll stay in the same order. Go to you, Mike, for your thoughts on grid down preps.
Okay, so power preps. So talking to a bunch of the preppers that were up there in the Smokies, became very clear. It's hard to have enough power preps. So the gentleman, one of the big gentlemen that I was talking to, he had everything all set up, or he didn't have everything set up. He had purchased everything that he needed, but had just not gotten to the project of setting up a power source just to be able to pump water out of his well.
Mm.
And he hadn't set that up, and he was kicking himself in the butt for that whole thing because one of the components that he was gonna use for that didn't work. So yeah, that was a real kick in the ding ding for him, and he was not super happy about that. But I'll tell you what, you are not wrong at all. Having battery backups. When I was out of power for several days, what was it, month before last, I think it was. I would only run my generator 3 times a day, 2 hours at a pop. That would power up my power banks. And then the power banks would run my refrigerator and freezers and, fans and stuff like that for like an additional 4 or 5 hours on top of that. So I could run it 2 hours at a pop 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, and be plenty good on all of my power. I was able to run everything that I needed to run. But yes, dual fuel or tri-fuel generators are a thing. So if you've got natural gas, a tri-fuel system, you can run it on natural gas full time, and then once you lose that, you can switch it over to propane and or gas. Take your pick. But yeah, power preps are a thing in and of themselves, and we need to pay more attention to it, especially because you need the power for your comms.
Yeah, well said, Mike. I will just add to that you need to thoroughly test your power preps in advance to make sure everything works the way you expect it to work. So there's a lot of the larger batteries, like the Mango Power E's that we have an option to do a fast charge, but you have to have a generator that's capable of cranking out the wattage of what that fast charge will draw. So you want to make sure your systems are balanced. Another thing that's interesting, Mike, is we've had a couple crazy electric bills here at our place in Florida, scratching our heads like, what on earth is causing this? And I found a UPS behind all of our network equipment that was consuming 1,000 watts nonstop, doing nothing. And as soon as I took it out of the loop, all of our stuff returned back to normal specs where I expected it to be. So,
wow.
Yeah, it
sounds like your UPS needs to be replaced.
UPS is in the garbage. It's gone.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I need another big power bank. That was one of the things that I determined during that couple of days where our power was down. Yeah, I needed additional power. I needed an additional big power bank. So yeah, I got to work on that.
we've got 20,000 watt hours of batteries, and over half of that is wired into 4 circuits in our house. So the stuff in the kitchen, our bedroom, my office, etc. And I couldn't agree more on stacking up the batteries. The more batteries you have, the less you need to run the generator. The less you need to run the generator, the less chance of somebody saying, hey, they've got generators and I may want to get my hands on that. Generator theft's a big deal here in Florida. And by the way, the reason that this is on this list is it's pretty much a given, and the FBI is saying this as well, that we will see a widespread terrorist attack before January the 6th. And
weird.
Very vulnerable piece of our infrastructure would be the grid. So S2, let's get your thoughts on being prepared for extended grid down.
So it's not only that we don't make transformers, we have the ability to do it. And it's interesting because 2 of the largest transformer companies were in North Carolina, where Mike was coming through right now. And they
S2, you still with us?
Oil, unless China is actually giving us. Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey,
no, you cut out.
we lost. Yeah, we lost you after you said that they were in North Carolina.
Oh, okay. So, am I good now?
Yes.
No transformer voice. Okay.
No, you suck.
Okay.
Go ahead, S2.
All right. So those transformers, they actually got away from filling them with mineral oil. They were actually using polyalpha olefin oil, which is a true synthetic oil, and that was for a couple of reasons. One, because of the ability to dissipate that heat better. The synthetic oil was doing a better job of doing that. But to my point is that we have the ability and the equipment and the machinery in this country to make our own stuff. The problem with it is that in order to make synthetics also have a certain component of dino oil to them. So in order to make synthetics, you have to have dino oil. But moving back to, it was just a piece of factual information there I wanted to give out. But moving back to the battery preps, one of the things that I did a couple of years back before we actually got our real battery bank, I built my own. I can run a laptop off of that thing, and I can run my comms off of it with no problem. And all it is, it's a solar charged battery that I put inside of an ammo box and put a charge controller on it, and I've got solar panels that I can hook up to that charge controller to charge it. But so that, like I said, that's one of the things that you can do if you want to do something on the cheap that will at least get you something if you can't afford a real battery box.
Yeah, good advice, S2. I actually know a handful of people who've done that, and there's nothing wrong with going that way at all. And I put a comment up from Josh, East Tennessee. We were the only place on our road with the electricity and internet after Helene, fully off-grid solar. Good job, Josh. Well done. And all right, so we're going to move to number 3, which is something that's really up Mike's alley. Pardon me, which is community building. So if things get really bad, there will be strength in numbers. There's always strength in numbers. So we've kind of got away from getting to know our neighbors as a society, right? Get to know your neighbors, feel them out, identify the ones who have similar values and beliefs, grow your relationship with them. I want to say that there's somewhere around 500 homes in this well-established upper middle class neighborhood that we live in. It was, built during the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And when we ride our bicycles around the neighborhood or go for a drive around the neighborhood, we've spotted a grand total of 3 Harris/Walls signs. So we've clearly identified who they are, but there's a ton of people putting Trump signs out that never did in the past because I think they're much like myself, or just like, screw it, we got nothing to lose, we're going to put it out there, sort of thing. So community building, back to that. So build a relationship. Essentially, if you're a lone wolf, your chances of survival are pretty slim. And especially if it turns into like a medium or long-term SHTF event. And then the next level up from, getting organized with your neighbors would be either to form or join a MAG, a mutual assistance group. And Mike has experience doing that, so I'm going to turn over to Mike. Let her rip.
Yeah. So you can only stay awake for so long, period. And there's strength in numbers. And if you've got additional people to be able to stand guard and the like, now you got the strength in numbers that gets you to a point of security. Security allows you to move into agriculture. Now you no longer just survive, you can thrive. And that's the goal. We don't want to struggle each and every day and wonder where our next meal is going to come from. That's not living. That's just surviving. And if you can't count on your neighbors, you need to be able to get to some place where you can. If you can't count on any of your neighbors, if you don't know any of your neighbors, that's a complete lack of security right there, and you need to be able to deal with that. Luckily, I've got quite a few neighbors that I can work with. Plus, we've also built a number of cells around northern Alabama around the southeast, specifically for these sort of things. So, of course, you get your PACE plan and the like, but you need additional people. That's why people come together and have for thousands of years. You can't just have just a family group for security purposes. Now you bring multiple family groups together, and now you have a village, because it does take a village, and it doesn't just take a village to raise a child. It takes a village to survive. So, yeah. And that's all I've got to say about that.
That's very well said, Mike. Especially the comment with regards to everybody has to sleep eventually. So definitely strength in numbers. S2, your thoughts on community building?
Well, we've been doing this type of thing for about the last 4 or 5 years now. There's also, you had Jeffrey Prather on last week. Jeffrey Prather at jeffreyprather.com has a thing called Team America. And I know that at least for the last 4 or 5 years. Durka.
Sorry. Yeah.
But I know that for the last 4 or 5 years, he's been building a significant organization where there's presence in at least 40 of the states in the United States. And it's been moving along very well, down to the point of where they've even started to organize logistics and things like that. So in the event something goes down and you have one region that doesn't have something that another region has, if they have some to share, then they can actually share it with the other region and have transportation lines to get that accomplished. So there's a lot of groups out there beyond just mutual assistance groups. There are actually nationwide groups out there that are doing this right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. I appreciate that, S2. Moving on to number 4 on our list. Now, keep in mind as well, I just want to mention this, there's various levels of SHTF. So it doesn't mean that everything's honky-dory and then all of a sudden we're in a post-apocalyptic scenario. There's multiple different stages to go through potentially in the middle, or stop at even during the middle. So number 4 on our list is to diversify your assets and finances. So in other words, a good idea to have some cash on hand, probably a good idea to have some precious metals on hand. If the whole world doesn't go for a shit, but we're somewhere in the middle ground, having some money in cryptocurrencies might be a good idea, especially if BRICS manages to crash our dollar as the standard way for trading globally. So Mike, I'm going to go to you, but both Mike and S2, think about this for a minute. I recently heard somebody say something that if you had money invested in precious metals, that if the world goes to hell in a handbasket, you should divest yourself of it as fast as possible. And I can't remember what the person's reasoning was. And if you guys have any insight on that, I'd love to hear it. I should have made a note of it, but Mike, go ahead. Diversify your assets beyond cash.
Well, I'll tell you what, just from what I've been seeing, just for the last week or so, I'll tell you what, the Appalachian area up there has turned into a goods and barter society up there. Money really only has so much value because there's a limited quantity of things inside the affected areas to buy. because the shit has absolutely hit the fan in that area. But it's not post-apocalyptic. But boy, I'll tell you what, it's, the quantity of goods that are available are limited, and the value of certain goods has dramatically changed, such as wool blankets, sleeping bags, tents, things like that everybody would have looked at and said, nah, that's that's just an item that goes into your camping kit out in the garage, or we're going to have that in a garage sale. Nah, man, now those are life-saving items. 2 gallons of gas is a big thing. You can trade a lot for a 5-gallon can of gas these days up there. So yeah, being aware and able to shift from a monetary economy over to a barter economy is a thing. I even did talk to a couple of guys who were trading or purchasing things in silver. So that's a thing.
Yeah, before we move on, I would just add to that if we end up into a parallel economy situation like that, you either have to have stuff you can trade or a skill that you can trade. So that's a good way to protect yourself there. And then just because you're on your way back from North Carolina, and I know it's a large state, but there are reports that FEMA is furiously building some project just west of Asheville, and that people have been using drones to check it out, and they've got some big development going there. So I don't know what that is.
I do.
People who, okay, then answer that S2 before you speak to diversifying your assets. Thank you.
What that camp is up there is actually for the FEMA workers themselves. That's why I sent out the message the other night to everybody. Don't get all excited when you hear about this, because that is not what you think it's for. It's
Gotcha.
for it's for the first responders that are coming for FEMA, to have them have a place to house them, so that they're not taking up all the hotel rooms and everything, and they can live out in the rough like everybody else is.
Okay. I didn't catch that, but thank you for sharing that. So we'll get your thoughts on number 4, finances, diversifying your assets. What do you think there, S2?
Absolutely, finances. It's one of the things that we don't want to fall back onto, but a lot of people, we used to say in the field that a candy bar can make a lot of problems go away for a minute.
Right.
Or a can of dip.
Well, I wasn't going to go to those pieces, but I will say that, as people have been pointing out in the chat, is that alcohol and tobacco are 2 of the largest barter items.
For
And
sure.
I'll say, as an overall picture to all of this, I don't see this as an apocalypse coming. What I see this as, if things don't go the way they should go, that we're going to be looking at Cold War period of time, where people are going to start standing in line at the bread lines, and they're going to get to the end of the line, and all of a sudden there's no bread left. So to Mike's point earlier, yeah, we do need to. I have a pantry that I started a long time ago to help support my immediate area here. So we have that in place. The other thing that you can do is talk to your neighbors and say, hey, we're all going to have to support each other. Go get yourself a food grade 55-gallon drum with a removable top on it, and say, go down to the store, get a 50-pound bag of rice, and you drop your supplies in there, and we'll drop our supplies in there. That way we have something. So food is absolutely can be a barterable item too. Now, to answer your question about why they say you should divest yourself of precious metals, I think it probably falls along the lines of you can't eat precious metals. Um, However, what I would say is, rather than buying bullion, one of the things that I switched off on, I was buying bullion like it was going out of style. And then I realized that bullion has a value in itself in weight, but where you look at coinage has something of a value to it beyond just what silver is. So when you start talking about divesting yourself, I think he's probably talking more about divesting yourself of the bullion that you have,
Yeah,
because coinage is
agree.
what people recognize. That's what they recognize as currency. So, and the same thing with gold chains. Back in the day, you used to be able to go down somewhere in some of these war-torn places, cut off a link off of a gold chain and hand that over and say, okay, I want to buy this with it. So and I've also been investing in crypto for about the last 5-6 years now, and yeah, I do cost average leveraging on that to where I buy a little bit every week, twice a week, and it does absolutely build up on time, and you can buy things with it. So that's one thing, but cash is going to be another thing. Keeping a good amount of cash on hand, no matter what happens, even if you're in a Cold War state, you still got to pay your bills. And
Mm.
if all of the ATMs go down tomorrow where you can't use your debit card anymore, what are you going to do? You still have to pay your bills. Otherwise, they're going to come turn your electricity off. They can come take your house. If you have a mortgage, you can't pay your mortgage. So, in the short term, yeah, cash is still going to be king with respect to those things. So, yeah, do diversify what you have as far as barter, the forms of gold and silver that you have, keeping cash around. Even look into getting some crypto if you can, keep it in a cold storage wallet off the exchanges, which is what's always recommended to do. No one ever leave it on the exchange because the exchanges have been hacked and people have had millions of dollars of crypto stolen from them. So
Yeah,
that's all I have to say about that.
good point. Mike, did you want to add something to that?
Yeah. So there was another thing that it just popped into my head. One of the tricks that like old special forces guys used to do when they would be out on missions in places is they would you'd always be able to know an SF guy because he always had a Rolex watch, and it had absolutely not a damn thing to do with the status of it. It had to do with you could buy yourself out of a situation with a Rolex watch.
Interesting.
Yeah, because it's a known commodity.
Yeah.
And a lot of people want one. So you could be, hey, I need to get out of this jam with this local law enforcement that are, dirty. Well, guess what? I can use this watch to get myself out of this situation.
That's awesome. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And they always used to carry pieces of silver coin on them as well, silver or gold coin in their belt.
Yeah. That was in the escape and evasion kits.
Right on. Okay, so moving on to item number 5, and that's self-defense. So our recommendation of these 10 do-it-now preps would be to level up your self-defense skills, and that probably means taking some professional training if you can afford to do so. If not, there's plenty of stuff you can find online. Keith gives away a bunch of stuff at christianwarriortraining.com as far as exercises. And I'm not talking exercises as in cardiovascular. I'm talking exercises and as far as training is concerned for accuracy, those sort of things. It wouldn't hurt for people to get in the habit of phone down, eyes up. If you remember nothing else when you're in public, try to remember that. Phone down, eyes up. If you have a higher level of situational awareness, it's more likely that if you spot something bad going on, you'll be able to avoid it. Best fight is the fight that never happens, essentially. And not to mention the fact that whether it is mankind or animals, the element of surprise is the key thing that the bad party always wants. So if you take away their element of surprise because the phone's down and the eyes are up, that usually bodes well for you. And when I say self-defense, I'm touching on it all. So it could be hand-to-hand, it could be guns, other weapons, whatever the case may be. But if you don't have any training, get some. These are all perishable skills. There's no substitute for it. And then practice, and practice some more. So, Mike, your thoughts on self-defense as a must-do prep? Earth to Mike. Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, there we go. It's starting to come back in. Sorry, guys. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Switch. Hit S2 first. I'll be back. Or
Okay.
I'll be here.
All right. S2, your thoughts on self-defense as a must-do prep?
Well, having been a 30-year martial arts practitioner in various different arts, including combat arts, I tend to put a little bit more weight on the hand-to-hand piece of it, just because that's one of my areas of specialty. But as far as firearms training, absolutely lots and lots and lots and lots of dry fire time. And there's a couple of reasons for that for me, because I've recently switched over to using red dots. I was always a steel sight guy, but as my eyesight's gotten bad or gotten worse over the years, I found that having a red dot has been a big help to me. And the problem with red dots is everybody thinks you can just slap one of these onto a handgun and you're going to be good to go. No, you have got to get your grip, your purchase on your weapon proper. You have got to get so many things with that so that you can get eyes and dot on target as quickly as possible. So that practice requires a lot of dry fire practice to where it becomes, yeah, okay, I know this doesn't feel right in my hand. I got to readjust until everything is right. So, that old saying, what is it? You fall back to the level of training as
Right.
to how you'll succeed. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay, I appreciate that. Before we go to Mike here, I'll say that, blind in my left eye, prosthetic eye, my right eye, my good eye, a couple years ago, my vision went away very, very quickly, and essentially had to have an ocular implant put in to restore my vision. And I was given three choices. So there was a cheap intraocular lens, which I didn't want. And then the next two were the same price, but one of them was a trifocal, so that you technically, unless you fall in a very small percentage, wouldn't require glasses for anything. And then there was the one that was basically from arm's length out, and anything in, you need readers. And I chose that one because the trifocal one is 3 concentric circles. And with only one eye, I didn't want to risk that I was one of the 3 or 4% whose brain would never turn off those circles, and that I'd always be looking through those lines. The other thing is that driving at night with those trifocal intraocular lenses is not good, because when the light hits each of those transitions, you get a starburst effect out of it. Where am I going with this? So I never had red dots on any of my sidearms. Now, I had red dots and LPVOs and scopes on my rifles, but my backups on all of my CQB stuff were pop-ups, iron sights. So if the battery was dead, I need to sight something, I could tip my gun and I had pop-up iron sights. Well, the problem is with the intraocular lens that I have, everything from my arm in is a blur. I've got about 20/50 vision. Now, from my hand out, my vision's better than perfect. It's 20/15. So I had to switch over to red dots, like you mentioned, S2. It was a challenge after shooting my entire life with iron sights on pistols to red dots to get it on target and have any level of accuracy. It took a fair bit of practice. So I just wanted to throw that into the mix as far as our conversation is concerned. Mike, your thoughts on leveling up your self-defense skills and measures?
Well, the ultimate investment that you can make is an investment in yourself. Period. Bottom line. Okay, so there are numerous instances, just in the most recent Hurricane Helene mess, of preppers, just like us, losing everything. Yeah. And that is where you separate the wheat from the chaff, right then and there, because you have the ones that have trained and the ones that have not trained. Well, if you don't have any of that cool guy gear and you have no training, what do you have? Yep. Nothing. You've got nothing. But if you have taken away everything from somebody who is heavily trained or and has invested in themselves, invest in yourself, what do you got? You've got somebody who still has skills because they're between your ears.
Well said. So, Mike, when we were at Randy Couture's gym in Las Vegas, I'm guessing that you noticed that the guy from Griffin Armament, he just looked like an average Joe. He had a bit of a pot belly on him and stuff. Holy
and he
crap.
was whooping ass too, man.
And you would have never expected it looking at the guy. Turns out he was a Navy SEAL, which I didn't know that either. But he schooled a bunch of competitors on Surviving Man, which is the shirt
he did.
From
he did
on MMA
man
stuff.
He was impressive. Out there he was out there folding their clothes with them still in it.
Yeah, it was awesome, and again, very unassuming looking. So you just never know these days, right?
Yep.
That's one
You
of the
never know.
that's one of the other things. One of the other things I always touch on with people too is, training is not just about physical training. It's also about training your skills on how to survive in what I would say impermissible situations. So let's say the hardware store down the street closes tomorrow and you need something from the hardware store. Have you been looking around at where else you might be able to get that resource from? Or could you make that resource? Or do you know somebody that could make that resource? Those are also things that are part of training that a lot of people overlook.
Here's a good one, and that's a real rare skill in our society these days. And I got to work on it. Is being able to sit down and talk with people and actually be able to see things from their perspective and try to discuss things so that they may see things from your perspective.
Fair enough. I want to add to S2's comments there. Everything that you referred to there, S2, obviously very important. But I think of that in terms of readiness training, like being ready for, these various scenarios to unfold. We're still working on our online urban survival readiness training stuff with Tony Blauer, but it speaks to a lot of that stuff. So in other words, it's not requiring people, to do push-ups and pull-ups and this judo move and that judo move. There's other levels of readiness that people can, up their skill level without breaking out a sweat, figuratively speaking. So that ties into point number 6, which is the next one, which is physical fitness. And, realistically, there's no downside to improving your physical fitness. And this is kind of, along the lines of Mike's point that if you invest in your physical fitness, it's not like somebody can take that away short of them, grievously injuring you or whatever the case may be. Here's the thing with physical fitness. It varies from person to person. So it doesn't mean that you need to go to the gym and bust your ass 2 hours a day. It doesn't mean that you need to run 26-mile marathons or anything like that. If you've been leading a sedentary life and the shit hits the fan, number one, you're not going to be able to shoot accurately when you're in a high stress confrontation. It just will not happen. That's why less than 20% of shots fired by cops hit their target. Less than 10% of shots fired by military personnel hit their target. If you haven't shot with your heart rate 140, 150 beats per minute, good luck. You're
welcome.
Yep. It's a thing. And I mean, which is why I train CQB training 5 days a week. And it is a perishable skill because a couple times when my training got interrupted, like when we were just in Nevada filming Surviving Man, I went the better part of a week without training. It took me a couple sessions to get back into it. And when I say my training, I'm not talking about going to the gym. I'll do an exercise, shoot a volley, sprint, shoot, do an exercise, do that back to back.
Link's not working.
I have no idea what you're talking
there
about.
It is. Oh, there he is.
He was going just fine.
Blanked out on us.
Yeah, well, yeah, you just interrupted me right in the middle of a conversation here.
Yeah, S2, he was fine. It was you.
Yeah. That's you. That's not me. So anyway, getting back to that is that everybody has their own unique level. You know what? If you've led a sedentary life, I'm not going to bust your chops for it, but go walk around the block. Generally speaking, and this is a number that Tony Blauer gave me, is that the average person, if they're trying to run away from an attacker, they die within the first 1,000 feet as a general rule of thumb number. So just upping your physical fitness a little bit will probably serve you well. S2, are you still with us?
Yes, I am here, and you're right. It's me. I know exactly where my interruptions are coming from.
I know where my interruptions are coming from too. It's you.
Sorry. What happened was you went blank on my screen, and I didn't know you were talking.
That's what I mean. Do you want to add anything to physical fitness? Either you or Mike.
At a very minimum, if you want to do something very minimal, go get a backpack, drop about 10, 15 pounds of rocks inside the backpack, and go walk around the block a couple times. Do that a couple times out of the week.
Anything is better than nothing at the end of the day. Yep. Doesn't mean you need to bust your ass. Doesn't need to consume your life. But as little as 10, 15 minutes a day of the right types of exercises is better than an hour or two of the wrong types of exercises. And what I'm getting at there is what's called a high intensity training, which is what I just mentioned. So a good example would be sprinting. And I'm not telling people out there that you need to sprint, but that's part of my regimen because number one, sprinting is not catabolic. It won't eat your muscle mass off of you. And number two, it's good from both an anaerobic as well as aerobic perspective, but do it at your own level. Nobody's judging you for this, but if you do it for 30 days, the chances of you continuing on from there go way, way up. You just got to get through that 30 days of whatever it is, walking around the block. Oh, JJ Morris. Mike, have you seen JJ?
Yep.
You know, what was he? 270 or something like that? And he's down
At
to like
least.
And so I don't remember the exact number, so don't quote me on this. But I think what he did is he walked a mile a day, which is not very far. He walked a mile a day for a couple months, and then he went to something like 2 miles a day or whatever. But last time I went shooting with him when we were at Jason Sawyer's, he had gone from something like 270 down to 230, and that's all he was doing was going for a walk. He's not doing anything crazy. You don't have to bust your balls, you know, to make improvements. Now, mind you, he did hit a plateau there. And
Right.
usually that means it's time to change your diet up a little bit, but that's a whole other story. So we'll move on from there. But the last two points that we made, so, you know, self-defense training and physical fitness tie into the next thing. I'm going to just speak very high level and turn it over to Mike because this is one of his areas of expertise. So stress inoculation. So this applies to your self-defense, your physical fitness. The adage that S2 was referencing from Sun Tzu was human beings never rise to the occasion. They follow their level of training, which is one of Mike's favorite quotes. So if you train under stress, especially weapons training, and sudden violence happens, you'll stand a much better chance of surviving. Most people go into condition black. They just freeze up when it happens, and then they have their gun taken away and they're shot with their gun. That's how 70% of Floridians die by gunshot wound that didn't commit suicide. So Mike, take it away from there, especially from the perspective of, I mean, you've been on the front lines in deployments in Afghanistan and Iraq, and you've seen what happens when people do or do not have stress inoculation. So take it away.
Yeah, that's a punk way to die, man. I mean, come on. What were your kids think of you? Anyway, so yeah, so like Chris said, you know, we don't rise to the occasion. The human brain is just not built to do that. Okay, it's just not. You will fall to the level of your training, and you will stay there. And again, where we talk about separating the wheat from the chaff, that's where, you know, if you have placed yourself into a position of stress and you continue, and that's what we as trainers try to do. We put you into a position of stress, push you to your stress envelope, and then we hold you there and occasionally notch it up, notch it up, notch it up. And that's the stress inoculation is the cornerstone of the special operations training method. And you know, me being an EOD technician, bomb tech, you know, our school is a year, and they put you at that stress point in EOD school, and they keep you there and keep ratcheting it up for a year. And wow. everybody talks to us, everybody looks at us when we're out on deployment, and there's mortars falling out of the sky, and there's RPGs flying, and all this stuff, and everybody's freaking out. But you know who's never freaking out? The EOD techs are just sitting there smoking a cigarette, going, "Yeah, that's cool. Indian Head was tougher." You know,
you won't feel it. You won't feel it.
Right. If it's meant for you, it's fine, whatever, you know. But yeah, we're usually just like, I just don't care. Just, you know, hey, chow's in 2 hours. Can we get this over with? You know, we wind up with a completely different set of priorities from that. But here's the big point. So panic is sorry guys, my TBIs are kicking in. When a disease can spread to somebody else, help me out here, guys.
Like a pandemic?
Contagious. Okay, so panic is contagious. right? So if you are in a crowded situation, right, you're sitting there with a whole bunch of other people, you panic, other people will panic because panic is contagious. Conversely, calm is also contagious. So everybody's freaking out and they look all of a sudden at you, and you're the one person standing there holding it all together and looking at everybody saying, hey, don't be a bunch of punks. It's all going to be cool. That is contagious. Be that rock in the middle of the river that everything flows around. Okay? If you can be the calm, cool, collected one in the middle of a fight, other people will cling to you and they will now become calm, cool, and collective. All right? Stress inoculation is a skill. Get it.
Well said. By the way, before S2 chimes in, Katie 465 says you done went blonde on us. You as in you, Mike.
It's TBIs. I'm going to stick to the fact that it's all TBIs. It has nothing to do with me getting older and losing word recall.
Fair enough. S2, your thoughts on stress inoculation?
Yeah, absolutely. I teach a knife class for civilians, and one of the things that I do on occasion is I will pressure test. I will pressure test what I teach my students, and it becomes very aggressive to them, and it's something that they don't expect. And I do it that way on purpose, because the way I run my classes is I bring it up, as Mike says, I bring it up, I bring it down, I bring it up, and I bring it down, and then I'll turn around and I'll pressure test somebody on what I've just taught. And then I'll probably stand out there and I'll yell at them for a few minutes. It's like, look, I just spent the last hour teaching this. What's wrong with you? Let's do it again. And then after I yell at them, then all of a sudden they do it right. And I'm like, there, I knew you could. But the point of it is that they're not ready for things. And I'll give them a number of techniques to use, and they have to choose what the right technique is to use, or that combination of techniques. And that's usually where everybody freezes, because they haven't practiced this enough.
Gotcha.
So same thing.
All right. Cool. Good point. So earlier I mentioned when the shit hits the fan, it's not that everything's fine and dandy and then all of a sudden we're in a post-apocalyptic world. There can be multiple levels in between. And a good example of a prep that you can put in place if the wheels don't completely fall off is, what are your work plans? So in other words, if the system doesn't completely collapse, but going out in public becomes dangerous, or going to a downtown core becomes dangerous, can you work from home? I mean, you may be able to because of the COVID baloney that we went through. And then again, maybe not. But this is a good time to try and put preps in place for stuff like that. And let me give you a really bad example, but it's still an example. Living in Florida, going through countless hurricanes, we have great power backup solutions. Somebody asked me about it when Milton came through, and I said, it's very anticlimactic because we're ready to go. Same thing goes with food and water. We do not have good cell service in our neighborhood at the best of times, so we typically relay our phones off of our Spectrum cable internet. And so when the cable internet goes away, then we're really in dire straits, because there's no sense in even, hotspotting my phone to my laptop because there's no bandwidth there. So one of the preps that I probably should have done a long time ago, but better late than never, I guess, is the final prep for us came in today, and that's a Starlink system. So I've got that now set up, and we're going to move off of cable to fiber optics, and we'll have this guy as our backup, whether we're here or whether we're on the road. So what I was getting at, though, is work preps. What do you have in place for work preps? Can you work from home? If so, do you have everything set up necessary to do that? If so, and you lose land-based internet, which is like anything else, all these overhead cables outside, I'm convinced that it's the unions that negotiated that, because most of Europe, the lines are all below ground. And every time you have a storm come through, it doesn't take their service out like ours does. So I think it's kind of like a make work project. But wireless, something like Starlink, I think is a really good way to go. So Mike, your thoughts on people being able to work remotely. Obviously, you can't, being in your line of work, unless you're running a bomb robot, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult, for me to be able to do that kind of stuff. The only thing I can really do is consult from home. But like, okay, so I was talking to a kid this morning up there in Jonesboro, and he works in IT, but his first job that he trained on is as a diesel mechanic. So, okay, well, my IT job's not going to work, but I can work right here in my neighborhood for my community as a diesel mechanic. So you may not be able to do your normal job, but you may be able to fall back onto your secondary job. If you can't get out to be able to do those sort of things, maybe you just stay there in your little town and instead of commuting and do your secondary job. So back to that whole investing in yourself thing.
Yeah, agreed. That was a good alternative or perspective I hadn't really thought of, Mike. S2, do you want to chime in on? Sorry, go ahead.
I need to do these things. I need to do these things more when I'm like dead tired, because I'm coming up with all kinds of good stuff.
It's kind of like Tuesday night drinking with Mike, just different.
It really is, just without the alcohol. Yeah,
it's stress inoculation.
There you go. S2, your thoughts on being able to work through?
Well, I've done a lot of things in my life. I have a lot of skills that I've built up over the years, and honestly, I've been working from home for the last 15 years anyway, even before COVID hit. So this is nothing new to me. I've been doing this for a long time. In fact, I've rarely ever have to set foot into certain facilities that I might work in as part of my profession now. In fact, I can't tell you when was the last time I ever saw one. But yeah, but everybody should figure something out as having a fallback onto, if you can't do your job tomorrow for whatever reason because the place got blown up or whatever, you need to have something that you can fall back onto that you can make a living at doing. Because like I said before, at the end of the day, you're still going to have to pay your bills.
Yeah, exactly. Before we move on to number 9, I just want to mention here, so King Renegade Gaming wants to know what our impressions of Starlink are. So here's the cool thing with Starlink is that whether it's home service or the roaming package, when you're in an RV, whatever the case may be, you can turn it off. So you don't have to pay the monthly fee. So right now, everybody in the Southeast who is impacted by Helene and Milton gets free Starlink internet through till January 1st, unlimited. Then the monthly bill, if we were to keep ours turned on here, would be $120 a month. And I was under the impression that you had to buy the $599 roaming package if you wanted to go, say, from campground to another campground in a different city. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's just a smaller form factor. And it looks like the $399 one, which we have, and I set up today, if we were to go, camping across the country or something, we could take that Starlink with us. Then it's $160 a month for unlimited data. So you're right. It is not cheap, but as the owner of Survival Dispatch, and we're an online, business, it's critical for us. So that's why we have Spectrum cable right now that's getting replaced with Gig-E fiber optics. We've got Starlink here for backup. January 1st, I'll turn it off. And in the app, you just literally slide a bar to turn it back on again if you need the Starlink. So that'll be our backup here at our cabin. We've got T-Mobile 5G, which kicks ass. It's almost as fast as our Spectrum cable here, but we'll take the Starlink with us there. And if we have to, we'll pay $160 instead of $120 for the roaming package if necessary. But it's really a backup for us. That's why I referred to it as the final prep. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So one thing that I want to add on to that for you is we use the hell out of Starlink up there in the mountains, man. I'm telling you, it is a lifesaver. But please have reasonable expectations on the amount of bandwidth you're going to have. It's still a satellite comm set. Okay, you're going to be able to do a lot of stuff. It's just going to be a little bit slower for you to be able to do those things. Okay, it's not high speed fiber optic. All right, just have a reasonable expectation. That's what I want you to have. Because I'll tell you what, I am buying one. I think Monday or Tuesday. The wife and I have already decided we're buying one, and that's going to be one of our backup comms. Matter of fact, our entire team scattered across the Southeast is already looking at we're gonna get them for every location, just so we can be able to maintain comms and grid down.
So the brief of these points that we put together had 10 things, right? 10 do it now preps. But on my pad here, I wrote down bonus one, number 11, and that's using Starlink for comms. We'll make a couple of comments on this. It's low orbit. It's not like Hughes satellite network. So there's a combination of bandwidth and latency. They're not the same things. And I'm a certified network engineer, so I can speak at length of this. I'll try not to get too technical. The Hughes satellite network, which has been around forever, the problem is it's latency. Okay, so the bandwidth is there, meaning you can get a lot of data coming from the satellite down to you, but it takes forever. And then all of a sudden, poof, it all comes at the same time. So latency is, you send a packet from here to Hughes, and how long does it take to come back to you to do that trip? You could be into many seconds, right? Whereas normally if you have land-based internet, cable, DSL, whatever, you're looking at 15 to 20 milliseconds for a packet to go back and forth. So the one advantage that Starlink has over Hughes is that it's low orbit, and the latency is pretty darn good for a satellite solution. I was getting measurements as low as 22 milliseconds when I tested earlier today, but I would say it averaged around 35, 40. Most people, now gamers would notice a difference, like the gentleman whose comment I put up there, but most people would not notice a difference from 20 to 40 milliseconds as far as their latency is concerned. Now, as far as the bandwidth is concerned, when you go on the mobile package, so the stuff that y'all were using up there, Mike, if it's not tied to a physical address like the home package, it's capped as a 50 mbit download and around maybe 4 or 5 mbit upload. Okay. And that would be the types of speeds you would expect, say 15, 20 years ago from an ADSL connection. So not screaming, but still okay. Now, if you tie Starlink to a physical location and you pay the $120 a month, they say that you're capped at 20 up and 100 down. I got 110 down and I got 27 up one time. So it's respectable. It is not going to be fiber optics, not going to be, high-end cable, but it's more than sufficient to operate on. And it is number 11 on our list. It's bonus number 11. So we'll go backwards down and we'll go to number 9, which is situational awareness. So how is situational awareness a prep? Well, this is one of those things that reps count if you do it over and over and over again. And it's not just, people think situational awareness, okay, well, I'm in a restaurant, I've got my back to the wall, I'm watching who's coming in. That's great. That's good situational awareness. But I'm also speaking in the larger sense in that stuff will hit X long before it will hit the mainstream media. And if you subscribe to your local sheriff's office, every single one that I'm aware of these days now, they put stuff out there immediately on their X, and you will know that the shit is hitting the fan really quickly if you pay attention to that stuff, as long as you subscribe to the right accounts, as well as the fact of just staying in tune with things that are going on in general. And one of the best ways to do that is to watch us on Survival Dispatch News, because unlike mainstream media, we're not feeding you a line of shit like they are. We're not in the business of spreading propaganda. And I'll let Cat out of the bag a little bit. Todd Callender and I are working on a video of all the laws that we think should be passed to turn our society around and save America. And one of them is truth in broadcasting and truth in advertising. If you knowingly broadcast bullshit lies, you should lose your broadcast license. An example would be ABC editing, or CBS, pardon me. It was ABC. ABC editing Kamala Harris's answers to make it look like she was more fluent in speaking the truth. You shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I'm a libertarian, but you should not be allowed to knowingly broadcast bullshit propaganda. So, Mike, your thoughts on developing situational awareness as a do-it-now prep?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I saw firsthand the effects of non-situational awareness. And S2, when you were up there, you might have seen it too. But I talked to 3 different couples up there that said to me, I had absolutely no idea there was even a big storm coming.
Wow.
How long had that been on the news? Even just the mainstream media was showing it.
Yeah.
But how disconnected do you got to be to not even know that there is a hurricane or at that point a tropical storm getting ready to descend on where you live? It's not like it was a little storm.
Right.
So
we don't have early warning systems anymore. When was the last time you heard a tornado siren go off?
All the time.
Long time.
All the time. But we're 40 miles away from the National Weather Center. I get them all the time. Northern Alabama, we are really, really twitchy about tornadoes. Ask us why. So talking about this sort of thing, pay attention. Put your phone down, eyes up from time to time. But at the same time, if you're going to be looking at things on your phone, for God's sakes, make them freaking things that are worthwhile looking at. Get off of TikTok. It's just rotting your brain.
I don't want to wish any ill will upon you or anybody else, Mike, but I will admit there's like a devil on this shoulder thinking to myself, I hope this is one of the points where Mike says, what were we talking about? Situational awareness. No. Yeah.
Right. What?
But you let me down on that one.
Yeah. So. I'm tired, man. What do you want?
Yeah. So before we go to S2's input on situational awareness, Recon Ranger, super valid point. Next door and Ring send notifications of crime and other news in the neighborhood. My wife stays on top of that Ring stuff all the time, and it is really good intel, good information to have. We live in a very low crime, small town America here, and she's got notices on there from people, they're stealing stuff from people's cars and checking car doors, open homes and stuff like that. And it's been good to know, because then all of a sudden we hear somebody outside who doesn't belong here. It's good intel to have. S2.
Yeah, situational awareness is not just awareness about what's around you at any particular given point in time. It's about situational awareness of everything that's going on. I had a very poignant point that I wanted to make on this, but I do see people every day. It's even if you go into a restaurant and you look at people. I don't take my phone out of my house anymore. I very rarely do. But I look around and I see families sitting around the dinner table, not talking to each other, sitting there looking at their phones individually and texting somebody else other than their family members.
Telling them what a great time that they're having with these other people that they're not talking to.
You need to start talking to people, because ultimately everything intelligence-wise comes down to human, which is human intelligence.
Yeah.
So if you're talking to people in your area, you will be more aware of what's going on. And again, IPB, which is Intelligence Preparing the Battlefield, is about going out and doing an area study of where you are and what's going on in your area. If you don't know what's going on in your area, you are way behind the ball. And I mean, it's knowing where the bad guys are, knowing where the high crime rates are. If you're driving to work one day, knowing where there might be the tendency of a mostly peaceful protest popping up, you need to know where that's going to be, and you need to have an out about getting out of there. So that's really all I can say about situational awareness. It's not just saying, oh, I'm looking around at what's going on right now in my immediate 6 feet away from me. It's not about that. It's about everything. And eyes have to be wide open right now.
Yeah, well said. I appreciate you sharing that, S2. Somebody asked, Roy, I guess it's moving a little bit fast on the side here. Is it worth dropping cell service for Starlink instead of paying for both? That depends. I wouldn't cancel our cell service at our cabin in North Georgia for Starlink, because our T-Mobile 5G connection there, we've got a modem that's unlimited data, and I think we pay $20 a month because we were customers for so long. I would never trade that for Starlink. It's really, really good. I myself, each to their own, our plan for Starlink is that's a backup if our primary stuff goes down, whether it's there or here. So
I would say
Same.
I would say for cell service, because I do a lot of secure phone builds for people. I'm doing some right now for some executives out there. But I would say if people are looking to cut costs on cell costs, if they're doing a trade-off between one or the other, I would say take a look at Mint Mobile, because they are really, really inexpensive. And I have not been anywhere in this country where I have not had cell service on a secure phone. So that's my piece of that.
right on. Okay, appreciate that.
You need to come to Wyoming with me.
Right. All right. So
I haven't been there to test that yet.
Yeah, moving on to our final point, which is number 10, and that is the family plan. So discuss a plan with your family for everybody to rendezvous if disaster strikes. Average American works 15 miles from home. That means making sure that you have some form of alternate comms available to you. Here's a great example. This is a Garmin InReach Mini. A bunch of us at Survival Dispatch have these things, and you can tether this to your phone, and you can send and receive text messages, get very detailed topographical maps where you are. You can have it send breadcrumbs so somebody can see where you're going, but you can turn this on and off. So I think it's about $12 a month. And if you're not going anywhere, you can turn it off. You don't pay the $12 a month, but this is our emergency comms right here. We take it with us when we're off the grid as well, but that sort of thing could become invaluable in the event that comms goes down. So alternate comms, if the cell network and or data networks go down. And that's about it for my points on that. Mike, you want to talk family plan, like rendezvous points?
Yeah.
Stuff, pace plan?
Yes. So one of my guys out in the Atlanta area, he broke down, and I guess he was really bored for a time period, something like that. I guess he wasn't working, and he wrote out an entire family continuity plan, where and it's just you fill in certain things, but it's got all these annexes in it. Hey, if there's a bug out, you got to go to Annex A. If you lose power and you need to know what the power plan is, and we need to plug in, you need to plug the generator into the house. Here's all the steps with photos of how you do all these tasks. Because you know what? I'm sorry, we as spouses don't always retain everything that our spouses tell us. And I'm just as guilty of it as anybody else. So I'm not pointing fingers or casting stones or anything, but not going to lie, my wife has never retained how to start the generator or how to get it all plugged in, because she looks at me and says, that's your job. But now that whole thing is right there in the book. And,
Nice.
And it takes some work, but it's got your contacts in it. It's got your, like I put my safe haven list and plan into there. And we worked on that. What was it, last year when I was doing that exercise, coming back across the country, having a list of safe havens and contacts and everything like that you need to be able to get a hold of. If you need to run up the radios, hey, it's right there. Because you know what? If you put all the information in one person's head, that's a single point of failure. And the point has come across to several folks that, hey, if my spouse trips, falls down the stairs, and busts their head open, all the knowledge for keeping the family alive is inside that head. And that's a problem. That's a single point of failure. And especially with me, the amount of traveling that I do, my family needs to be able to know what to do when I'm not there, because I'm not there a lot.
Yeah, good point. Well said. I want to back up just for a second as far as the Garmin InReach Mini is concerned. So our neighbor in Georgia, keep in mind, our cabin's at the end of a private road, at the end of a private driveway with a gate across it at the very top of the mountain. And just inside the gate, we actually share the gate with our neighbor, Linda. Last year, Christmas Eve, it was brutally cold. It was like something like -10, and she slipped and fell on the ice, and she's had a whole bunch of surgery. She's not getting around very well, and she slid underneath the front porch on her new home. And if it wasn't for another neighbor who had tried to call her and didn't get an answer and come looking, she probably wouldn't be with us because she was going into hypothermia. This is pretty crazy. So the husband of the neighbor who was looking for her, he comes along. What happens to him? He slips and falls in the ice, and he gets stuck under the porch right beside Linda. And so fortunately, the wife comes along and helps them get out. But the Garmin InReach Mini has an SOS button on it. And I haven't checked their website in a while. Last time I looked, I want to say that it was either 5,000 people or 10,000 people that they've rescued from somebody pressing that SOS button. It's a big number for sure. So it's a great tool. Hey, slipping on the ice and getting wedged up underneath the porch, that's the shit hitting the fan. It's just not for everybody, right? So S2, noticed you bounced out and back in again. The last point, number 10, was the family plan. And do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. So you're talking about the Garmin InReach. That's a great solution. There's also other solutions out there too. One is called the Bivy Stick that does the same thing, connects to your cell phone, and you can use that as well. That's a good way to keep in touch with folks. We actually, during Milton, we had team members down in Florida that were checking in with us, and that actually will come to you through a couple of different ways. It can come to you through your cell phone. It can also go to email for you as well. So if you have a family member that has email, they will get a message from you in a couple of different ways. But as far as a family plan goes, um, I agree with what Mike says, is that this needs to be something that's put down on paper. It's just a lot like a signals intelligence or operations guide. You have to have this stuff written down. Otherwise, you're the only guy that has it. And it's something, quite honestly, that I've been accused of. And it's not because I don't want to do it. It's because I have so much going on throughout every day for the last 5 years that this crap has been going on with our government that I just simply haven't put it down on paper. But I think that we generally have a pretty good, loosely understood plan of, if something goes crazy here, then we go there. If something goes crazy there, then you come here. And it's been the same thing with what I would term as our mutual assistance group, even though it's kind of loosely termed that way. Everybody knows that if they need to come here, they can come here. If they need to go somewhere else, then we have other places where they can go as well. We call those, as Mike would call them, safe harbors. We call them, or safe havens. We call them safe houses. And we've used those actually in the past to um, exfil some folks that were in some bad situations that I won't get into at the moment, because it involved our federal government. But we exfilled them as they were freaking out, but we had those locations already there. And because we had them predetermined, we were able to get them out and get them calmed down and do damage control and get all of that stuff out of the way. So yeah, it is absolutely a good idea to say, honey, if I am at work and the grid goes down, it's probably going to take me a few hours to get home, and this is where I'm going to go. This is how I'm going to go. This is my route. And if can't go that way, then this is my alternative route. But don't come looking for me. I will be home. Um, that's about all I can say on that.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's cool. So Jimmy Slim, I heard you can connect to satellite with a cell phone. Anyone know if that's true? So since the iPhone 14, they can connect to the satellite, but it's strictly for SOS purposes. It's not like the Garmin InReach Mini where you can send and receive text messages over the satellite network. It's essentially a connection to 911, and that's about it. And I'm assuming that the newer higher end Android phones are capable of doing that as well. But it's not a comparable service, at least right now, to the Garmin InReach Mini. With that being said, I know for a fact that Elon is currently testing the X phone, which bounces off the Starlink network. And so here we go again, right? Like cell phones, if towers go down, you lose your service. If you have really bad weather, you might lose your service. it's Bike Week right now, Biketoberfest in Daytona. We're north of Daytona, but we can still hear a lot of it. When I lived in Daytona, not too far from the Speedway, anytime there was an event week, we lost all of our cell phone service because they turned all the towers down for us and turned them all up on ISB, International Speedway Boulevard. So with that being said, if I had a choice between a satellite phone that doesn't cost $1,500 or $1,500 a month for the Iridiums, whatever it is,
Iridium.
it was the same price as a cell contract, which is what Elon's proposing to do, I would take the satellite connection myself. So
the sat phones are not that much. They're not. I have a sat phone. They're actually kind of reasonable. I bought my sat phone outright, so I own that. But a lot of the companies out there, like sat123.com, they'll actually sell you a sat package with the sat phone, which is they have the Inmarsat and they have the Iridium, so they're not that expensive. They're about $100 a month with the phone, so it's kind of reasonable.
I'm looking at things like the
that's
Iridium.
come way down.
Well, I'm looking right now, like the Iridiums right now. Middle of the road is $1,990 for one of their middle of the road phones. I've seen them $1,300.
That's it.
But
that's if you buy the phone outright. That's if you buy the phone outright.
Right. But the Iridium phones, I'm looking at all their packages from Iridium right now. They start $100 a month and they go up from there. I'm seeing a couple at $270. That looks like the highest package. So if Elon brings an X phone out that works off of Starlink that is a similar price to the current telcos, he'll probably kick their ass, because we're getting back to it's unlikely you're going to lose satellite comms, whereas anything that's terrestrial based, all you got to do is a bad storm, whatever the case may be, and poof, gone.
Well, all I can say about Iridium is when I die, I want Iridium to be one of my pallbearers so they can let me down one more time.
Inmarsat isn't much better.
No, they are not.
Yeah, like I said, I would if Elon pulls this off, which I'm kind of inclined to believe he will, that may just be the way forward.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So
I'm waiting on Sugar Bear. I'm waiting on X Force. I want X Force.
All right, so that's it for our 10 must do right now preps. Quick plug for our Patreon. If you go over to patreon.com/survival dispatch, we have free memberships, paid memberships, $9.99 a month, behind the scenes content, early access to content, free survival guide, our essentials guide. It's 228 pages, by the way. Before I forget, haven't said it once during this broadcast, if you do us a favor and mash the thumbs up button, we would appreciate it. Helps with the algorithm, helps to get our videos recommended to other users. And we will wrap up with the conflicted question. Gordon feels that people take their freedom for granted. Do you also feel in general that people take their freedom for granted, and why? S2, we'll go to you first.
Oh, count the many ways. Yeah, they do. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a new poll that was put out here recently saying that 49% of evangelicals are not going to vote because they didn't like Donald Trump's mean tweets.
Right.
We see all of the evil that is being perpetrated in this world right now. And for people to say that they are with God and they are against all of the evil that's going on in this world, and yet they believe a politician that's going to tell them, oh yeah, I'm a good guy, but when the really comes down to it, they're the ones that are committing all of the darkness in the background. Yeah, those people have no, pardon my French, I got to say it, they have no fucking idea what they are talking about. And so, yes, they do take their freedoms for granted. And it's probably because they don't take the same freedoms that we see as being critical to our freedom as seriously. You know, most of the religious folks out there, they're not into Second Amendment, First Amendment. Yeah, they want their First Amendment to a certain extent, but they don't understand that the Second Amendment guarantees the First Amendment and all others. So, yeah, I see a lot of people out there that have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. They have no idea that, yeah, early voting has started in a lot of states. And guess what? The cheating has already started. If you guys are part of the signal group that we set up today as the insiders for survival dispatch, I suggest you get attached to that, because I am going to be dumping a lot of intel out there on this very subject. And right now, the thing that we have to do is we have to vote. I understand a lot of people think that your vote doesn't matter, but it does. And it matters especially now. This is probably the most important election of our lifetimes in the history of this country. So
Well,
that
I would add that we've heard that time and time again, but it's the real deal this time around. If Obama gets his fourth term, they're going to stack the Supreme Court. They're going to gut our liberties, and you will not recognize America. And
they're already doing it. They're already doing it with that DOD directive. They fully intend to use that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll go next and I'll let you wrap up, Mike. I absolutely feel that people take their freedom for granted because they've outsourced everything. They've outsourced their safety and security to first responders. And, as long as they got their bonbons and Netflix, they're okay. But most people are not capable of handling stuff that we only have to go back a couple generations. We call stuff survival today that was everyday life for our grandparents and beyond that. So why else do they take things for granted? There's no other way to say it. We've created a very lazy culture in America. There's some of us who work insane hours and have really strong work ethic because we were raised that way, but there are far too many people that don't have good work ethic. And I refer to them as fresh air inspectors. And, I can't stand Mitt Romney. God, I can't stand Mitt Romney. But when he said that 47% of the people are paying for everybody else, that was an accurate number. 47% of us are working our ass off paying taxes. So the other 53% can be fresh air inspectors. So absolutely no ifs, ands, or buts that there's many people, unfortunately, in our society that take their freedom for granted. Mike, I'll let you wrap up.
Oh yeah, this is I've been waiting for this one. I actually read an article the other day that a large quantity of people in this poll felt that we should modify the U.S. Constitution or scrap it entirely because people shouldn't be allowed to say things that are offensive.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. You know what? It's like, okay, you know what? Go hug a tree and thank it for all the hard work that it's doing to keep you alive because you don't deserve it.
Hey, they make oxygen.
That's my point. They're making all that oxygen and these people are just stealing it.
That's too funny, but unfortunately there's a strong element of truth there. But all right, guys, appreciate everybody's time. I will mention, by the way, that we peaked a little over 500 people with everything, all the different platforms. The new record, though, was from 2 nights ago. On Thursday night, we had well over 1,000 people join us concurrently, which is pretty awesome. So my personal opinion is that Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday, for whatever reason, seem to be the biggest nights for doing live broadcasts. But we'll see what happens tomorrow night, and hopefully we set another new record there. We want to keep growing stuff.
Why aren't you mashing the button? Mash the thumbs up button.
There you go. Mash the button. Exactly. So, all right. We appreciate everybody out there as well. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And God bless America.